data can be really, really valuable, not just to drive a change in behavior that drives sales, but importantly to build a brand. So I think for the last couple of years, the debates around big data, I think they don't do anyone, they don't do the industry any good, because I think certain businesses will look at big data and it's almost it can almost paralyze you, because you haven't structured your business in a way, internally or externally, in a way that can organize all of that big data. So the smallest line of data can change consumer behavior. And I think you look back at Cannes last year. You look at the businesses that are winning awards for creativity this year, and they are all fueled by data, and that data is based around just a simple consumer insight or a simple consumer behavior, and that's just being acted upon through whatever the behavior, the tone of voice, or the direction of travel is for that brand. So,
can I give you an example of that? The Sun Dream Team campaign last year was actually so it was run entirely from the insight that one of the analysts noted that we knew people's football team that they supported, and most people had picked a player from their rival football team. And that was actually, it was a single line of insight that said, hang on, there's something interesting in that.
Yeah.
And the whole campaign was driven from the back of that. It's not necessarily big data, it's fairly small.
I think that with regard to data, too many people talk about big data, but if you use an anthropological analogy, we don't talk about humans or us as a species, because it's just too big. You know, we talk about, we're not talking to humans, we're talking to people that are in a room. So you need to analogize big data to bring it back into the room so people can actually consume what you're talking about. Because to all of us, there is no such thing as big data, the same way as there's no such thing as the human species. We're just part of it. We'll never see the whole thing. It doesn't really impact us much. It's just at what layers does data become useful or relevant, and is it usable, and how is it usable, rather than big data.
Yeah, you're talking about context. It's really about the context of it. And so I think that, you mentioned, Chris saying, he knew who was reading, what was the sort of historical trend of what people were reading over the last few years. Who's asking the question also matters as well. You kind of mentioned on the privacy piece in terms of, are you willing to give up all this information from an opt-in perspective? Well, I might if it's my trusted, newspaper that I've actually gotten all my information from. Perhaps I want them to know more about me so they can provide more information in the context of which they've provided to me previously. I think that's a really interesting piece of it. So you can actually bring this sort of human race thing down, human species down to something that I can actually digest, and then you can actually make it actionable. I think that's where that sort of piece, but then the context of all that data is really an important piece of it. Then you can figure out what the best to do with it.
So the balance everyone needs to strike is that context, and this is always in all of our careers. Context is nothing without content. So you can understand all you want about where someone is and the behaviours that they show. So where they're going to receive an ad. But if you then don't use the same data you're using to understand the context to provide an experience, a piece of content, no matter how glorious it could have been filmed, spent millions of pounds filming, or it can be a really interesting piece of dynamic content that can be created off a template and served at that minute, that can still change their behaviour and it can build a brand. So it's kind of really getting the balance between, and that marriage of context and content, I think, and data, more than ever before, even that single line of data can help us do that.
One of you, I think, perhaps it was